is going on YouTube? So yesterday I did my way too early top 20 or way too early top 25, way too early Heisman prediction video, and today I wanted to do my way too early college football playoff predictions, a video that just kind of slipped my mind. I've done national champion odds, I've done my way too early top 25, my season recap, and my obviously way too early Heisman. So this is the last obvious one that comes to mind for me. If you have any more prediction videos that you think would be good to see for next year, post them in the comments below, and I will take them into consideration, try to get them done. Alright, so I'm going to do a little bit of an extended version of my normal college football playoff predictions. So I normally do something kind of like, I think I normally do like 1 to 4 and then 4 outside. But this one I'm going to do my 1 to 4 and then 5 outside and then my dark horses. So let's go ahead and start with the dark horses. So my first one, I'm not sure how much of a dark horse they are anymore, just because it seems like they've got a lot of hype building into 2015 or 2016, excuse me, and that's the Houston Cougars. So I think if there's any group of 5 team that's going to end up making the playoff next year, it is definitely going to be Houston. There's a few teams that I would say watch out for next year, one of which would be South Florida, another one of which would be San Diego State, and another one of which would be Boise State. But I think Houston is obviously the most important one to watch out for. Greg Ward coming back, and he's starting to gain a lot of hype. I had a couple people comment about why Greg Ward was not on my way too early Heisman list, and I explained he's a group of 5 quarterback, and it's hard to win a Heisman being a group of 5 player. So move on to my second dark horse, and I've got Florida. So this is completely banking on the fact that Florida's able to find a quarterback that makes that offense go. Florida, in that way, is a lot like LSU for me. They're not same teams in a sense. They're probably both going to have pretty solid defenses next year, but Florida is they're a more well-rounded team, I think, than LSU. And I think they have a better chance of finding a good quarterback. It's supposed to be Luke Del Rio. Will Greer will be back eventually, so I think they'll have him back for a little bit. I think that could work out well. I mean, you saw what Florida was like when they had a quarterback and they were able to go, and it was a top 10 team. You lost their quarterback, had to throw in Treon Harris. Treon Harris does return, but I don't think he has a chance in starting. It was just a rough way to end the year for Treon Harris. And if Florida can find a quarterback, then I think they will be one of the top 10 teams in the country. And even though they're not in a lot of people's top, some people actually don't have them in their top 25 to start off next year. And I think that it's a team in the SEC East you should watch out for. All right, so number 3, I've got Louisville. So Louisville is a team that is one of my dark horses in the ACC as well. So the ACC should be stronger this year overall. They should have a group of 3 teams that should be very, very solid in North Carolina, Florida State, and Clemson. But also the next tier down should be very good as well. Duke should be good again. Virginia Tech should be. I think Virginia Tech will be improved. I think Justin Fuente is going to lead that team in the right direction. I think everyone else will. Everyone else will also. And Louisville and Miami as well, I think, will be vastly improved teams. All right, so move on to my next one, which I just mentioned them, and that's Miami. So I'd like to hope that Miami actually returns to glory eventually. I'm a big fan of traditional powers, and I think that college football is a lot better when traditional powers are winning. And I think pretty much everyone agrees with that, just because obviously the traditional powers have the bigger fan base, which means when they're winning, that means more people are happy. But I think that Miami's going to be headed in the right direction under Mark Richt. They got a Heisman candidate coming back in Brad Kaya that should be very good. They've got a very good running back in Joseph Yerby that's coming back. I believe they returned something in the realm of like 16 or 17 starters. So it should be a very solid team this coming year after a team that lost a lot of players the year before. All right, so moving to my 5 outside. So at number 5, I've got Oklahoma. So I just don't think Oklahoma's going to be the best team in the Big 12 next year. I know that they return a lot on both sides of the ball. They lose a little bit more on defense than they do on offense, but really all they lose on offense is Sterling Shepard. And that is a big piece, but I think they do still have enough weapons at the skill positions that they'll be able to make up for that. They returned Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon. I do believe they return Alex Ross as well. Not that important, though. He's third string, and they obviously returned Baker Mayfield. On defense, they should be just as fine as well. I pointed this guy out a lot. I think he's going to be a star on the Oklahoma defense. That's Jordan Thomas. I think he's going to be very good. So, for me, OU will probably finish as the second best team in the Big 12. That's my prediction, but like I said, it's very close at the top. So move on to my number 4 on the 5 outside, and I've got Stanford. So I think Stanford just loses too much to be able to make it to the playoff this coming year. I get it, they have Christian McCaffrey coming back. But I think this coming year is going to be more of the same for Stanford. I think they will be one of the more predictable teams this coming year. Like I said, they do lose a lot on both sides of the ball. They return one of the best players in the country, sure, but they also lose one of the best and most consistent quarterbacks last year in the Pac-12 in Kevin Hogan. So moving on to my number 3, and I've got UCLA. So I think UCLA is legit going to be a top 10 team this year. It feels different. Every single year, it seems like UCLA goes in with a lot of hype. This year they were like number 6 at one point. They ended up folding at 10 at the end of the season and losing to Nebraska in their bowl game. But I think they have a lot of weapons in place to make a good run this year. I think the quarterback's a lot better than it has been in years past. No disrespect to Brett Hundley, he was a fantastic quarterback, but I mean, Josh Rosen to me is just on a different level, and I think he'll improve, and I think that the entire team, even though they do, like I said, they do lose a couple pieces, and Kenny Clark, Miles Jack, Thomas Duarte, Paul Perkins, but I think they'll be just fine. I think that UCLA is going to be one of the dark horses for this year. Again, a lot of people I don't think are going to have them even close to the playoff. But I think that that's a team that a couple people are going to overlook, and I think that's going to be a mistake. So move on to my number 2 on the 5 outside, and I've got Michigan. So to me, Michigan's going to be the second best team in the Big 10, and I think that Michigan is going to be a vastly improved team. Every sign for me points in the right direction for Michigan. They return a ton. I think they'll be fine at quarterback after losing Jake Rudock. Bring back Davion Smith at running back. I think he'll have an improved year next year. Look at wide receiver. They still got J. Hugh Chesson coming back. At tight end, they got Jake Butt coming back. On defense, they've got Jordan Lewis, Jabril Peppers. Jabril Peppers on pretty much every side of the ball. And I think John O'Korn's going to have a pretty good year at quarterback. To be honest, I think they could really pick anyone to start at quarterback and they'd be fine. I think that Jim Harbaugh's a very, very good coach for quarterbacks, and it's a system that's set up for really any quarterback to maybe not statistically succeed, but just be just be a winner and be a successful game manager is basically what I'm trying to get after. So move on to number 1 on the 5 outside, and the team that I think is just going to barely miss the playoffs, and that's Florida State. So I think that Florida State's 1 year off. I know that this is going to be a big year for them. I'm pretty sure that I don't know if Dalvin Cook's going to stay for a senior year. I think it'll be very good for him too, just because this coming running back class is going to be so crowded. I also think that he'll have a tremendous chance at winning a national championship if he comes back for another year. A year that Clemson will probably lose quite a bit, mainly Deshaun Watson, Wayne Gallman, and that will give Florida State a chance to not only take the ACC but win the national championship. So I think like I said, Florida State's heading in the right direction. I think it's going to be an improved year. Not to say they had a bad year last year, but a 3-loss season for Florida State is below expectations for sure. I'm not sure he's going to start a quarterback. Probably Sean McGuire. I've been saying that for most of the offseason. But I don't know if they can really fail with a starting quarterback. I think they got about 3 options that could work. Travis Rudolph is a very good wide receiver coming back. He should be good as well. Josh Sweat leading the defense. Josh Sweet, not 100% sure on which way you say that, but he should be one of the best defensive linemen in the nation coming up for this year. And I think Florida State's set up to really contend for a spot in the college football playoff. All right, so move into my actual college football playoff predictions. And this one is kind of similar to mine last year. But at number 4, I've got Baylor. So I had Baylor in mind last year, and I genuinely think if Seth Russell and Jarrett Stidham had not gone down with injury, that it would have been Baylor in the college football playoff. It was just, there were so many injuries for Baylor last year that just cost them so much. And even with those injuries, they were still able to succeed and just the score didn't show it, but they really just dominated North Carolina in every sense of the word dominate. Marquise Williams really held North Carolina in that game, and he played out of his mind, but Baylor played unbelievably well for what they had. That running back, I mean, they got 4 running backs that are all really, really good coming back. A guy named Johnny Jefferson that averaged somewhere like 6-7 yards a carry last year. Shock Linwood, obviously a fantastic running back. Terrence Williams, an incredibly athletic running back it's probably going to be their 4th string this year. And then Devin Chafin, who has been an incredibly good third down back for Baylor for about 3 years now. So I think that Baylor, with the depth they have right now, they don't lose a whole lot at any position besides wide receiver. They do lose Spencer Durango, kind of the anchor of that offensive line. They do lose a little bit on the D line. They lose Andrew Billings, which I think is the biggest loss on the defensive side of the ball. They also lose Sean Oakman, but I don't know how big a loss that's actually going to be. They lose Xavier Howard, but like I said, they've been recruiting so well that I don't think it's going to make too big a difference. They've got a whole host of quarterbacks coming back. I believe they have Chris Johnson coming back, and hopefully they don't have to fall to the 3rd string again, but they do have Chris Johnson coming back. They've got Katie Cannon coming back, who I think will be one of the best receivers in the country this year. They do lose Jay Lee and Corey Coleman. Basically, I'm going through the entire Baylor season preview, but I think this is going to be a team that's going to be very good this upcoming season. So, moving to my number 3, obviously I have Baylor winning the Big, or at this point I have Baylor as the Big 12 champion. That might change though. If like I said, there's still a lot of time before my official preseason predictions come around. So, move on to my number 3. I've got Ohio State. So I just have a lot of faith in Ohio State this year. I genuinely think that Ohio State was the second, maybe the most talented, but the second best team in college football this year. No offense to Clemson, but I think that Ohio State really could have competed with, if not beat, Bama with the way they were clicking at the end of the season. It sucks that it took until the Michigan game to click like that, but there was just too much. I think there was just too much talent that wasn't mixing well. JT Barrett didn't have a spectacular year. Like I said, he got it together at the end. Ezekiel Elliott had a pretty good year. Joey Bosa had really a rough year. I mean, the way he ended it, the way he started it, and just in between, not really getting going until the end of the season sack-wise. I mean, he is still coming out as maybe the best player in the draft class, but I don't think that it was the season he had imagined. The amount of talent they had on both sides of the ball, like I said, Ezekiel Elliott, JT Barrett on offense, Jalen Marshall, Michael Thomas, a wide receiver, Eli Apple, Von Bell on defense. I mean, like I said, it's a team that I think is going to reload and have a lot to work with, and I don't think that, obviously they don't have as high of expectation coming back this year as they did last year, being pretty much the consensus national. I mean, everyone thought that Ohio State, beating Ohio State was just damn near impossible because of the amount of returning talent they had and just how they absolutely just dominated Oregon. It seemed like beat Alabama, not convincingly, but I mean, it wasn't it wasn't extremely close. It was enough. It was a convincing win, is what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to get after with Ohio State is I've got a lot of faith in them to win the Big Ten this upcoming year and kind of fix the mistakes they made this year. So move on to my number 2, and I've got Alabama. So I think that Alabama will make their 3rd consecutive college football playoff. I don't think that there's really any team in the SEC that can contend with Alabama. I mean, I go through the East. Tennessee should be improved. Florida should be improved. Georgia's going to take another year in transition. I'm not 100% sure how Kirby Smart's going to work out there. I think it'll be good, but I really don't know if Kirby Smart's a better coach than Mark Richt. It's not like Georgia's defense was the problem. But like I said, we'll see what happens there. In the SEC West, I think that LSU can definitely contend if they find a quarterback, but again, I've mentioned that over and over again. I don't know if that's going to happen. Ole Miss could contend. Yeah, I mean, they've beaten Alabama 2 years in a row now, but hasn't really gone anywhere either year. Mississippi State's going to be down, that's for sure. A&M, not 100% sure how they're going to be. Arkansas loses a lot. So I think it's Alabama's division to lose for sure. Auburn should be improved, but again, I think it's still by far Alabama's division to lose, even though they do lose. They lose quite a bit on both sides of the ball, but they have quite a bit of talent to replace it, and a lot of talent that's still on the team. Calvin Ridley, of note. Jonathan, I think it's Jonathan Allen returning also. Surprise return, and the guys that they're replacing, the guys that they lost with, Bo Scarborough, Blake Barnett I think Blake Barnett can be just as good, if not better, than Jake Coker. So, like I said, I think it's Alabama's division, not just division, but conference to lose. And like I said, we'll see what happens. So, move on to my number 1, and obviously I got Clemson. So, I think that Clemson they just seem like a brand new team under Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson's a guy that really just is so precise. I mention this in almost every time I talk about Deshaun Watson, but really just a treat to watch Deshaun Watson play. If you did not watch Deshaun Watson a lot this year, I would say go ahead and watch him next year. If all you caught him in was the national championship, then you didn't. And that kind of sucks for you. He had a fantastic regular season. Like I said, he was a Heisman contender. Clemson returned so much on offense. They returned the Wayne train. They returned, obviously, Deshaun. They returned a whole host of receivers that I mentioned all the time. Deion Kane, Artavis Scott, Mike Williams, that trio coming back along with Jordan Leggett at tight end. I don't know why so many players declared early on the defense, most notably TJ Green, who I think could have been a stud coming back this year, but that is what it is. Like I said, they do lose a little bit on defense. Mackenzie Alexander leaving for the draft, Shaq Lawson graduating, going to the draft. So, like I said, there is a decent amount of talent leaving on defense, but none that I think Clemson can't replace with how good they've been recruiting. So that is pretty much it. Those are my college football playoff predictions for the upcoming season. In the outro, in the outro and the description below, I will be putting pretty much the link to every preseason preview or every way too early college football video I've done since the end of the season. Just if you guys want to see how everything I'm predicting, and then like I said, I always love to hear what you guys have to say about the upcoming season, about what you think, about anything from predictions to just what happened in the 2015-2016 season. Like I said, love to hear what everyone has to say, especially about college football. It's one of my favorite things to talk about, so that's pretty much it. So yeah, what's going on YouTube? So wanted to do a video that I thought would be kind of obvious to do for my way too early predictions for next year. So I've already done my 2015-2016 season recap, but I also did my way too early rankings for next year. So I wanted to do a video about my championship odds for next year. So this is not necessarily the teams that I think from 1 to